Albert Einstein's letter, addressed to Wilhelm Reich, not only denied the existence of the orgone, or life energy, even as the manifestation of its presence was witnessed by himself, thermally and visually, but added a last note bearing the following words.
I hope that this will develop your skepticism, so that you do not allow yourself to be deceived by an understandable illusion. I ask that you have the instrument picked up again at your convenience, which after all is of some value. It has not been damaged. With friendly regards, yours, signed A. Einstein.
The reply by Wilhelm Reich to Albert Einstein's hope, suggesting he discarded the phenomena as an understandable illusion, came to life in the form of a 43-page scientific document, as explained in previous chapters, where the alleged illusion was demonstrated to be a factual, tangible reality bigger than life itself. This is a continuation of such reply, where the highlights of such historical scientific document are presented.
As to the clarification of your tabletop phenomenon, there seem to be only two possible interpretations. A, that of your assistant, i.e. a heat convection vertically down from the ceiling, or in other words, equalization of the temperature of the upper surface of the tabletop and the temperature of the ceiling. And B, my interpretation, i.e. orgone radiation from the soil and the atmospheric air. The effect of the radiation at the horizontal wooden tabletop was known to me, and was what induced me to suspend the control thermometer freely in the room in order to eliminate the diminishing effect of this radiation. Your assistant's interpretation is refuted by the arrangement as used in experiment number 1, metal plate below, wooden plate above, control thermometer above the lower plate. The horizontal heat potential without a laterally effective heat source continues to exist even when the heat convection from the ceiling to the lower plate is interrupted. Experiment number 2 refutes the interpretation even more clearly.
Among the many disturbing facts to be found in Einstein's letter to Wilhelm Reich, the most striking one is the capacity that this notable scientist held to sustain a clear contradiction of facts proven as a reality in his presence, distorting them into a hypothetical illusion. The refutation offered by his assistant, Leopold Infeld, that is, the attribution of the heat phenomena from no known source to convection generated from floor to ceiling within the room, had been, up front, already discarded the day that the experiment took place in his presence by Wilhelm Reich, where a control thermometer was suspended freely in the air, at a distance from any wall, floor, or ceiling, in order to ensure that the radiation emitted by such did not influence the result obtained by the thermometer placed above the orgone accumulator. Einstein himself included this part of the setup as he replicated the experiment himself. Thus, the influence of the convection generated from the floor to the ceiling as a determining factor should have been discarded by himself, first and foremost, if a true scientific process would have been undertaken at his hands.
The biophysical framework of the temperature phenomenon. There exists in the atmosphere, the soil, and the living organism a specific biologically active energy which I termed orgone. This energy can be made visible in the form of scintillations in the atmosphere and the soil, as well as on green bushes with the aid of the orgonoscope. It can be measured electroscopically and thermically and can be concentrated with the aid of a specific arrangement of materials. There are some photographic demonstrations, but they are as yet not sufficiently clearly separated from the control experiments. On Kodachrome film, the radiation registers as blue or bluish-gray, that is, in the same color in which it is perceived subjectively.
The way in which the radiation of the orgone, or life energy, was registered by means of Kodachrome film, the most exact medium by which an image could be captured, was by exposing the photographic plate during a period of time to the radiation of the orgone within the accumulator. The slow, undulating motion of the radiation would then be registered, revealing not only its characteristic shade of gray-blue color, but also its undulating shape.
The living organism is surrounded by a field of energy, the extent of which varies within narrower or wider limits. This can be demonstrated by way of the oscillograph. If, for example, without any connection by a conductor, a hand is moved at a distance of 1 to 4 meters from a cellulose disc placed vertically in front of a silver electrode, the oscillograph will register variations.
What the experiment here, mentioned briefly, refers to is the capacity of the living field that surrounds the organism to hold an influence at a distance extending beyond the physical, observable field of the body. A fact now unquestioned in everyday life, considered science fiction at the time.
I know this is all extremely condensed and sounds crazy. Obviously, it is too much to be mastered by myself alone. In addition, it seems to be so new that for years I have been feeling to be treading an extremely dangerous path, and that there was very little hope of again breaking through in a reasonable time the wall of traditional defense against anything new. In the field of psychiatry, it took 10 years before the point of view of biological energy was taken cognizance of. However, the logic with which the problem of biological energy developed over the past 20 years is in itself a very weighty argument and a consolation. It was this development which led me, logically and without any preconceived ideas, to the purely physical heat phenomenon.
From the inception that saw the first rays of understanding, involving a new form of power, the source of which was not yet known, to the last demonstrated effects of this power, made tangible and at the reach of physical senses by means of its discoverer, only the foundation of truth that its very essence is governed by, granted Wilhelm Reich the degree of courage and strength required to sustain the monstrous opposition and persecution that its presence evoked in the world, a world dimmed in shadows, now beginning to awaken with each spark of understanding.
On the occasion of my first visit, I told you about certain ideas concerning experimental and clinical findings, ideas which represent a heavy burden of responsibility, and which I had not formed without a great deal of consideration. Overwhelmed by the wealth of these new insights, I hoped to obtain from you, or through you, that help in matters of physics or otherwise which the work so amply deserves. It would be understandable enough if you, for lack of time or interest, would not want to occupy yourself any further with the matter. However, if I should fail now to interest the world of physics in this discovery in the field of biophysics, I see no possibility of achieving within reasonable time the exploration of the physical sector of this gigantic field of research, so much needed in the interest of cancer research. In addition, any negative judgment on your part could be expected with certainty to turn people, blindly believing in authority as they are, most scientific workers not accepted, against my work. I would have to struggle alone, exposed to malicious rumors which take the place of objective argument, without funds except for my modest income as academic teacher, of which for many years I have been spending $300 to $500 a month for the laboratory. My only help would be my authority in the field of biopsychology and the many findings which in the course of years logically followed one upon the other. Under these circumstances, it would not be possible within a reasonable period of time to investigate on a large scale the effect of the biological energy.
Not a single word from Einstein was granted in response to this argument. The argument of a new finding, revealing and demonstrating the existence of a power acting through and on behalf of the process that makes planet Earth pulsate with life.